All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to now just talk about these in some more detail. So you can either unmute or drop ideas in the chat. So just as a reminder, our focus today was on some of the materials that are really important to use in our tutoring, and we focused on text and representations. So first, let's talk about these texts. So in mathematics, I think earlier in the fall, we talked about that teachers and tutors have strengths, and then teachers and tutors have opportunities for growth, like things that they might be able to improve upon. So, what would you say might be some of the opportunities for growth that students have with reading, math, text, and resources? So, where are your students currently, and what are some of the things where we could help them improve their understanding of reading and understanding these texts? So if someone wants to unmute and share, or if someone wants to drop into the chat, please go ahead and do whatever makes you most comfortable.
Am I the only person in here who's not
You
from
might be,
ODE?
Heather. So it might be us today. So,
Okay.
let's have a fun combo. So,
Okay.
yeah, what are some of the opportunities for growth for your students here?
So currently, the only student that, well, we have two or three students in math, but we have one that is just extremely low. She's in fourth grade and she did very poor on a second grade level test that I had given yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
and our tutor didn't feel qualified, so she just quit right before I
Oh,
got on this call. So
okay.
I'm gonna have to
Oh,
do her
no.
tutoring today after
Okay.
this. Um, so she
Oh.
is low in reading in general.
Mm-hmm.
So reading, trying to do fourth grade math, which she's low at, reading fourth grade math worksheets and problems are going to not be written on her reading level in general.
Yeah.
So really breaking apart, having a strategy for word level problems and breaking apart the kind of vocabulary terms,
Mm-hmm.
the essential words. I mean, even, some is not something that she probably
She's understanding.
will know.
Yeah.
Yeah. She can add
So,
one
yeah.
digit by one digit, but that's about it.
I
So,
mean, so those are strengths, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
there are some skills in math where she sounds like, she has a comfort level. Um, so probably you hit upon the two things that I would focus on, which you're probably doing already. But first is vocabulary. So there are a lot of vocabulary terms, but there's a small set, and I'll say dozens, that we actually see regularly used. So I'm happy to share this with you. Okay, you're gonna have to give me a minute, Heather. My big computer wasn't working today. And so at the last minute, I had to transition to my small computer, and now it's telling me my battery is about to die. And so I don't want that to happen. So let me plug this in real quick. I was a little discombobulated as we got started here today because you should see my small computer is now directly in front of my large computer. Glad I brought both to work today. Okay, so vocabulary. So we are doing a fourth and fifth grade project here in Texas. And so we just looked at the released items from our upcoming state Texas assessment. And we found about 40 to 50 terms that we saw regularly used multiple times. And so some of those terms were like difference, more than, greater than, expression, quotient. And so, even though I know there are hundreds of vocabulary terms, it might be I'm happy to share our list with you, but also maybe looking at some of the assessments and texts that this student is going to be reading, and then really focusing on those vocabulary terms. That might be a nice way to get her to understand some of these things in math. Have you done
Right.
some of that already, or are you helping with the vocabulary just yet?
So they just started tutoring last week, and
Okay.
the tutor had, already mentioned to me right away that she was like, I failed so many math classes.
Oh,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm, pre-K to 3 is my, focus. So if you can get me younger students, and I'm like, well, but she really needs it, and you're my only tutor right
Yeah.
now. And then today she was like,
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
can't.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Well, it's too
okay,
bad
well,
because probably a lot of the math that the student that we're talking about really needs is some of that earlier grades math, right?
yeah,
And then also, fourth grade math. But, you have to have teachers that know how to go back and teach first grade math, second grade, third grade math in order to help that student fully understand grade 4 math.
right.
So that's too bad. So I'm sorry that that's a stressor for you today. But the other thing that I would work on with this student, and this is what we're going to get into in the synchronous learning session, is giving them what we call an attack strategy for working through specifically word problems, but it can also be pretty much most text-based things in math that are put in front of that student. And so that's to understand it by reading it. So I don't know about the students that you work with in Ohio, but we have a lot of students here in Texas where we'll put a word problem in front of them, and within 1 second, their pencil is in their hand and they are writing. And so I know that they didn't read the problem. They didn't start to try to paraphrase, like, oh, in this problem, I have to figure out how many strawberry cupcakes there are all together. And so really getting them to slow down, because I think that many students don't have a way to attack a word problem. And so usually an attack strategy is like understand, plan, solve, and check. But like saying, okay, let's do this together. Let's read this together. Let's make a plan. What is your plan here? Are you going to draw a picture? Are you going to multiply? Are you going to add? But then if you give them this consistent structure that they can apply, then while word problem solving still is a daunting task, it doesn't have to be so daunting. So we are going to get into that in the synchronous learning session, which is just in about 2 or 3 weeks, but that might be some stuff that you want to go ahead and think about there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm kind of just going off script of this, all this, but um,
Sorry.
yep, no, it's more fun when we're just talking together and trying to problem
Sarah,
solve. Yeah, David.
you and I have had had this conversation and sort of going about what Heather said about the student who quit,
Yeah,
and that's coming back to we. And I've shared my frustrations as superintendent in hiring. The comfort people have saying I'm not good at math, but they
yeah,
would tell me I'm not good at reading.
yeah,
And we have accepted in saying that, and that could be, we have teachers who are really not very good at reading.
yeah.
They're not good at
They
comprehension. They
probably are
have
not going to share
reading their
that as
biology
much with
test.
you. So,
There's certain courses they take that are difficult for them because
yeah.
they read slowly, but they still
Hmm.
don't sit around saying, I'm a bad reader.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about
It's,
that tutor. How do we save that tutor? How do we get her back and help her to understand
yeah.
if she wants to be a teacher and I'm hiring, I need her to change her attitude.
Yeah.
And Heather, I'm talking to you as an ex superintendent right now.
Yeah. I
My
mean, what do you
mission is
think,
to
Heather?
get
Like,
people.
would there be a way to bring that tutor back into the fold?
Well, she said she wants to stay we have a kindergarten student, so she's going to stay and tutor her. Um, but the sixth grade and fourth grade math students that we have, she said she just can't. And I think if she was farther along in her education program, she would have more education strategies in general, even
Hmm.
lesson planning or resources, just things like that that weren't necessarily math specific. But she is a freshman, so
Mm.
she's just barely started her tutoring course, or I mean, her teaching courses. So having her be low at math, while I was pretty much preparing what she was doing for her tutoring sessions
Yeah.
anyways, because I'm a former math and reading teacher. Um, and she didn't know where to start. She doesn't, as a freshman, you don't even hardly know what the standards are, the Common
Hmm.
Core standards or
Yeah.
anything. So,
Well, and I
um,
respect that she knows her boundaries. And in fact, I
yeah,
think that that's nice that she was able to say, I'm out of my comfort zone. And, I would still like to do this, but I just feel like I can't do that. So, on one hand, I think I would give her, a pat on the back, be like, thank you for recognizing when you're in over your head. But I think getting to David's point, and it's probably for this specific tutor that we're talking about, they just haven't gone through the coursework and the practicums
Mhm.
to really understand fourth, fifth, sixth grade math yet. But to David's point, uh, we just have to provide a lot more uh, I'll say professional learning, but I also think that also is coaching for some of our teachers and tutors that aren't as comfortable with math. And if we're talking elementary grades math, I'd say pre-K 5 or maybe even pre-K 8. You don't have to have a overwhelming love of math to be able to break things into steps, to like, engage students in practice and to, really understand how to teach math. I think for high school, there's, another skill set that's going on there. But the just having resources available, whether that's books or videos or in-person professional learning or, asynchronous professional learning that you can access at any time. Like I, make a lot of videos here about how to help students understand fractions or how to use these algebra tiles to set up and solve equations. But people just need to know that those materials are out there and access them and contribute to their own knowledge.
Are your videos that you're talking about public, or is it specific to your?
Yes. Yeah, so we have a lot of videos. I'm not going to know the exact link here. So we've created about, I think, 160 videos now for a project that we called Project Stare. So if you go to YouTube and type in project, it has to be Project Stare, not just Stare. Um, that was a grant where we are still continuing that grant, but we created a bunch of videos mostly for middle school teachers. But you know what middle school teachers mostly need, Heather? Practice on elementary school math of like how to
Mhm.
help students understand. There's setting up and solving of word problems. There's about 30 videos on understanding fractions, which might be really helpful for any of your tutors, especially in grade 4 that are working on fractions. And then, oh, thank you, Sarah. She found it there. Um, I also put together a lot of videos. It's for if you just open your search engine and type in NCII math course. This is from the National Center on Intensive Intervention. I created an 8-module math course about the teaching of math. And modules 6 and 7 are just content knowledge about how do you help students understand what does it mean to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with whole numbers first, so that might be helpful for your K teachers. And then rational numbers second. So that might be helpful for your grades 4, 5, 6 teachers. Sarah Wilson, I need you with me all the time to just drop these into the chat. Thank you. But there I show like there are 3 models of fractions. You have to help students understand models according to length and area and set. And I've also done some, okay, Sarah Wilson, I'm going to challenge you here. For the Inclusion in Texas network that's based here in the state of Texas, we developed a series of 23 math modules. So you have to go to the website, inclusiontexas.org, and then at the top it says math. And then if you scroll to the bottom of that page, there are 23 PDFs about how do you teach math for how do you teach place value? How do you teach addition with facts, addition with regrouping, addition without regrouping? And so we have scripted out all of that, but also provided teachers with all of the problems that they need to teach that and vocabulary cards. So that might be really helpful for some of your tutors. And so, and if you can't find them, they're kind of housed in a weird place on that website. But I'm happy to. Oh, there's Sarah. You did it. They're all downloadable and 100% free. And then the last set of materials that we have is if you're interested in problem solving, we have our free intervention called piratemathequationquest.com.
I've
I
got
do
that
know that
one.
website. And so people can download all those materials. And embedded within there are flashcards like with facts, and there's word problem cards. Sometimes teachers are like, I don't have enough word problems. Well, here are 200 word problems on these cards that you can then share with your students to help them with the teaching
And
of
that one
math.
was for third grade specifically, right?
It was designed around,
Originally.
yeah, it was designed for third grade. We tested it at grade 3. It's really appropriate for any kids who have hard time with addition and subtraction word problems. So right
Okay.
now, most of the teachers that are using it are probably grades 2, 3, 4 teachers. And currently, right now, today, I've got 15 tutors here in Austin schools. We're working on a multi-step version of Pirate Math Equation Quest. So that'll be available in probably 2024, 25, where that'll be more grades 3, 4, 5. And there we're getting into more of the multiplication and division word problems as well. So yeah. I'm trying to think of other resources for you.
Well, that right there was a lot.
Well, okay. Give me a minute. You're gonna see me.
Okay.
I'm gonna walk over to my thing here. Okay. So this is, I think, the older version of this. So I teach math methods courses here at the university, and my students, I always use this text. This is the John Vandewall, Karen Karp, and Ginny Bay Williams text. There's the 11th edition. It's someplace over on my shelves, but this is the 10th edition. But it's 698 pages. So but this is if they're not already using this in their coursework, they might be using something similar to this. But this is basically for teachers about how to teach math, but it's actually not how to teach math. It's a lot about math content. So the first 5 chapters are like background knowledge, and some of it's good, some of it's not great. But I'll just show you some examples here. They have all these visuals in here about here's about more, less, and equal sets. When we're getting into the word problems, about the different word problem structures, they really describe it and describe it well. And so while you can do a lot of professional learning and coaching around how to teach math, I think this book is super helpful for background knowledge. So chapter 9 is about developing basic fact fluency. And it talks about using an addition table. It talks about doubles. It talks about using 10 frames. And so if you're kind of ooh, what are all the ways that I could help students understand addition? It's not, I don't think it's always necessarily telling you exactly how to teach it that well, but I think the background knowledge that a book like this affords, and I mean, this is really, I feel, the classic, most math methods courses in the United States, I feel, use this book or something very similar. And
it's just called mathematics.
Yeah, this one's called Elementary and Middle School Mathematics, Teaching Developmentally. Okay. Sarah Wilson's going to knock this one out with your Amazon link. They just came out with the 11th edition, and it's great. I mean, just look at all the visuals here. It's about how to multiply fractions. There's a visual about how to do that, right? And so if you're kind of I don't know how to teach this, it gives you a lot of really good background knowledge. And so when I teach the math methods course here, all of my students use this book. And even my PhD students, we do a PhD seminar on math intervention. They all buy that book too, because I'm if you are, oh, Sarah, bravo. If you're going to design math intervention, or if you're going to provide, PD to teachers about math intervention, you got to make sure that your math knowledge is insanely strong. And so I would recommend something like that. And it might be something that kindergarten tutor that you're talking about, there's a whole chapter on counting and cardinality, right? Does she even know that there's 5 counting principles and here's how you teach them in this order? It's that kind of stuff that's really helpful for teachers to do.
So what I hear, Sarah, is that this is stuff people just haven't learned yet.
Yeah.
Your own story of 8th grade to 9th grade.
Oh, yeah.
In Heather, where, I know I tend to think about saving people, but if she's a freshman, she doesn't know how to do it yet. Mm-hmm. That's different from she doesn't know how to do it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. There's a young professor that I mentor, different institution, but she was telling me that, she was so pumped up watching one of these that it's not only am I going to teach you the science of reading, I'm going to teach you how to be the greatest math teacher ever. So when you walk into a job interview and they say, what's your certification? I'm pre-K 3, but I'm an outstanding mathematics teacher along with a great reading teacher.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, she said, do you think that would help? I said, I call that hired. Because it isn't the message that we often hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's there's some structural things in either our traditional teacher pipelines and also our alternative certification teacher pipelines. Here at our university, we offer 2 math methods courses to our special education teachers. And I have never spoken to really anyone else at any university that their students get to take two math methods courses in special ed. And that's because there's just two faculty here. I work with Chris Dobler. He teaches one and I teach the other. But at many universities, I used to teach at the University of Virginia, there was only one math methods course. And so you're supposed to get everything into a 10 or 13 or 14-week course from counting to algebra, and not only like filling teacher content knowledge, but then also building like teaching knowledge around that content. And then there's a lot of people that I work with. I have a lot of faculty members who reach out to me and they say, like, I'm teaching methods for science, social studies, and math. We have 4 weeks on math. What should I do? And so I feel like a lot of our teachers are getting like 4 weeks on math. I want to be like, don't even try. But then I'm also like, okay, well, here's things you could do in 4 weeks. And that's why we designed that NCII math course, is so that teachers could seek out knowledge about how to provide tutoring and math above and beyond the teacher pipeline. But I think we first fail teachers there. And then I think the other way that we fail teachers is through professional learning. So I do a lot of professional learning across the United States for teachers. And often when I go, they'll say, well, this is the first math session I've done in 3 years or 5 years, or this is the first time anybody's ever talked to me about word problem solving. Well, let me just tell you, if we're not talking to teachers about word problem solving every year and almost every month, we are failing teachers, because at grade 3 and then through the rest of the student school career, they show their math knowledge through word problem solving. So if teachers aren't teaching math through problem solving, then we're not helping our students, really show their math knowledge off. And don't even get me started. David already knows I'm already on about word problem solving. But, if they haven't received specific word problem training or word problem coaching, we're just really letting our teachers down.
Sarah, I'm chuckling.
Now I'm frustrated, but take it away, Sherry.
I'm chuckling because Sarah and I are sitting here thinking the same thing. And I was typing to her, hey, I wonder if she's designing anything around NCTM's effective teaching practices. And she's typing, hey, I wonder what kind of professional learning. So we are looking at scaling, because Heather, what you're experiencing, as much as we would love to impact higher ed, that is a goal ultimately. But what we're finding is a lot of our teachers, in addition to not necessarily meeting the standard,
go get daddy,
is still a little shocking. And the shifts around the standards, they're not understanding the effective teaching practices. And so my thought is if we are, and I think Texas is part of this with the high quality instructional material. We are really pushing districts to look at the materials that they're using so that teachers aren't having to pull stuff. Like your poor freshman teacher, I mean, she's probably being taught to create lessons, and it's like,
we've got a lot of that already, right?
We've got that, but there are great materials out there that are aligned to those standards. They get that rigor and hopefully have those scaffolds. I don't know about that extent of a scaffold with the 4th, 5th to 2nd grade, but I guess my point, my question is, what have you seen, or where can you point me around professional learning that we can scale statewide around those effective teaching practices? I'd really like to ramp up our knowledge in the educational service centers. 52 of them, so that then they can start working with districts.
So I do believe there's a lot out there, right? So, and I mean, there's a lot more people besides me that work in this space. My focus is typically on that tier 2, tier 3, that tutoring. But to be honest, Sherry, most of the school districts that I'm working with these days, I'm working with their gen ed teachers. Because I have school districts who are saying 75% of our students aren't proficient, 92% of our students aren't proficient. Well, they need some of these more like foundational practices to really help their students with that. So there are a lot of resources out there. I mean, I think that the NCTM does have some resources. I don't know how accessible they are. But, you know, we've tried to create a lot for the National Center on Intensive Intervention so that those are free and easy to access materials. I'll give you an example of something that I'm doing right now for the state of Kansas. So I am working with my colleague, Brad Witzel. He focuses on grades, middle school, high school. I do the pre-K to 5. I was just in Kansas last week, but we have a contract with them to develop a series of modules that every teacher in the state of Kansas who teaches math, whether that's preschool math or grade 11 math, that they will participate in. And how we've designed it, and this might be something that the state of Ohio is interested in, is there's a set of modules, A, B, C, D, and E, that all teachers access. So it's about the vertical pathways in math learning. We have stuff about how to boost math language for students and why that's important. And so it's like every teacher participates in the first 5 modules. And then we have some grade band modules. So I'm focusing on the pre-K 2 stuff. So there's 9 modules there, one about addition and subtraction facts, another about addition and subtraction computation, one about place value, one about geometry, one about measurement. And it aligns with the standards in the state of Kansas. They align to the Common Core standards in Kansas. So it'd be very similar to what you all do. And then we have a series of grades 3 through 5 modules that we're developing there as well. And it can be developed in person by the ES. They have ESCs or service centers as well, or it can be accessed online. But I think it's that content stuff. So there's an entire module about how to help students understand fractions. And that is not content that's meant to be delivered to teachers. Students. It's meant to be delivered to teachers, right? So, so there's a lot of things that you can do there. And we've done this for like Rhode Island, state of Virginia, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. That's great. Bye, Heather. Good luck with that. Poor thing.
Bye, Heather. I'll see you soon.
We're right in the very beginning. We've been messing around with it because right now the focus is on literacy, and you can only overwhelm the elementary teachers so much.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
But it's definitely,
but it's coming, you know. I think everything, I don't know the exact years, but it seems that math is always about 5 years behind reading, right? So a lot of states a few years ago really started passing some dyslexia legislation. And I think now we're starting to see some states also think, oh, well, what about numeracy? What about mathematics? So it's coming, and maybe, you know, I would say as a state, I think you all could be ahead of it in terms of what are some, you know, regional or statewide materials and trainings that we have available to teachers in the area of math, just knowing that many teachers, what they've received in the past has probably been underwhelming. For some teachers, it's been great. And some teachers, I bet, have amazing math resources at their hands, but a lot of our newer and more novice teachers probably do not.
And then the fact that it's not curriculum based too. I mean, that's the other thing. If it's not connected to their work that they're doing, I mean, that's very hard to transfer, especially for those new teachers. I mean,
you know, there's like some research that talks about how powerful a good curriculum is. And so there's a few studies about if you have teachers that have pretty limited background knowledge, if they have a strong curriculum that really gives them all of the resources and all of the information to teach, like that is really quite helpful. And actually, there's a study that I read recently where that can increase tutor knowledge. So you come in and like your own knowledge, it was about fractions, but like your own knowledge about fractions can actually improve by seeing and using a very good curriculum about fractions, right? But where you have to fill in the gaps is you've got it. We'll just take Heather's student, like 4th grade student. So you've got a student and you're using this curriculum focused on fractions, but you also see that they need fact practice. They don't understand what does it mean to regroup in addition. They have a weaker understanding of place value. And so many times, you know, the materials that you have at grade 4, great for grade 4, but like how do you kind of differentiate and like fill in as necessary? That's where like filling in that teacher knowledge is going to be really essential and really important.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Exciting. So
it is. Well, there's a lot of need. Yeah, David.
Well, I put a question in the chat for Sherry.
Okay.
when
we're
you
getting
said
this with the literacy right now for everybody.
the reviewers,
That is reviewers get confused because textbooks people will tell you we are aligned with what you're trying to do. We're a best practice series, whether
yes,
they are or not. And so off the record, I do have lists to know areas I can direct people and say, here's where you can find out. But if you're reviewing that and they're telling you that may not be accurate.
you're exactly right. The gold star, we're aligned to Ohio standards.
Yeah, I think of Marion local schools when their superintendent, who was an advocate of the science of reading, went there, ended up purchasing a whole language series because the salesman convinced him
that it was aligned.
It was science of reading. It's aligned perfectly, and it's less expensive. We can save you money.
Right.
Because they couldn't give the series away because it didn't align anymore. He bought it and then found out that it was wrong.
Yeah, what we're doing for all content areas is starting, we've got a curriculum support guide that helps districts walk through what's your vision for this particular content, and then how do you evaluate the materials. Specifically for ELA, math, and science, we're pointing them to Ed Reports because that does show, I mean, it's a pretty extensive review process. And they also have a component to say if it's aligned to science of reading. Now, Melissa Weber Mayer's shop through legislation is now going, if it passes, is now going to be required to have a nice and naughty list, except it won't list out the naughties. It'll only list the nice. And they will have an Ohio approved science of reading aligned core and intervention list, and possibly even one higher level. I'm not supplemental. That's it, supplemental. And so they are getting ready to start that process. They'll start with the Ed Reports materials, and then the external and department people will vet from there to come down with a solid list. And then districts, according to the legislation, will be required to teach from materials in that list, or they will have to have
I read the updates and reports.
It's extensive. We're not there for math, but it would not surprise me, like Sarah said, in 5 years if we don't have legislation, well, 4 years technically, around math. So yeah.